I'll move it to approve.
Anyone else?
Seconded.
Second.
Thank you. Approved. Oh, I forgot to introduce Pang. Pang, would you mind introduce yourself? He's our new member. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Pang Siribata. I'm with the Department of Human Services MedQuest Division, which is state Medicaid agency. But I'll be representing Department of Human Services. My role at the MPD or MedQuest is Technology Strategy and Innovation. A pleasure to meet everyone.
Welcome, Pang. Looking forward to working with you.
Same here.
Thank you. All right, move on to the next action item. It's the Data Task Force Charter Review and Approval. I hope everyone got a chance to look at it. Would somebody make a motion to approve?
I'll move it to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All right. So the next item is the data quality standard document. Wondering if anyone has any questions or any concerns, any suggested change on the data quality document? Everyone is good? Yes? Would someone make a motion to approve, please?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
I second.
Yes, thank you. That's approved. All right, the next one, data privacy standards and document. I think, Pang, you have some comments on that, right?
Yeah. Just a member of our organization has some comment on the documentation there. I know my apologies. I'm fairly new, so I'm trying to get the cadence, and I was late in terms of giving guys heads up on what might that look like. So my apologies there.
No problem. What shall we do? Shall we make the updates to the team and then push it to the next meeting for approval? Because we have a packed agenda item. We probably won't have time to discuss about that live here. Yeah. So we'll make the change. Yeah. And I will send everyone an update and get your feedback on that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one is just an update on the website data.hawaii.gov. We added data and AI glossary being published there. And also there are data literacy training documents, training contents are published on data.hawaii.gov as well. On the agenda item, you should have a link to that website. We created assessment tests for the data literacy. And now we're just working on the technical challenge on how to ensure that people would be able to, easily access the test, and we can track people so we can award them certificates. So working on that last step. All right, I think Derek is here. I see Derek. Yeah, so next action item is update from the 21st Century Data Governance Task Force. So Derek, could you introduce yourself and give us the update?
Sure. Thanks, Rebecca. Derek Bale, Chief Data Officer for the Department of Health. I wanted to give an update for the 21st Century Data Governance Task Force, which was something that was created by the legislature a year ago and continued in this most recent leg session. The goals really are to ensure that we identify what the potential issues and blockers are towards social determinants of health data standardization. There are a number of agencies that were called out in the enabling legislation, including ETS and DOH and a few others. And it put the authority to the group to add other agencies. We have formally added DHS to that list. OHA was on the original list. And at the most recent meeting, we added representation from DHS and DOE, Papua Ololokahi as well. So we have, I think, a good set of stakeholders to begin this conversation. The scope really is around what social determinants or SDOH values do we have in our community, and how can we best reflect the reality of our population and subpopulations. I think we all recognize that the data we have right now is missing in a lot of areas. It's incomplete. And there's, without comprehensive, consistent standards, we're going to be missing people. We're going to be missing subpopulations. We're going to be missing their outcomes. We're going to be missing how we can help them better as state agencies and retask or retool our programs. In order to work on that standardization, there's a report due to the legislature in December. And so our next meeting is next week. It is, again, another Sunshine Committee. I think the only people who are formally on that committee are Rebecca and myself, who are in this as well. So I don't think we need a permitted interaction group for this conversation update. But the goals are to ensure we start to think about what key factors are for social determinants that we're missing. We know that every agency is collecting this kind of data in different ways, that we don't have consistent standards for race, ethnicity. We don't have consistent standards for language. We don't have consistent standards for sexual orientation and gender identity, or equally for housing or for mapping. And so the goal is to start with race, ethnicity. That's our understanding of the intent of the legislative action, and start to look at what those barriers are and work towards consistency, recommendations of consistency across agencies in gathering and reporting this information. I'll defer to Rebecca in terms of where we think this might go. We want to continue that conversation and make sure that that ball is not dropped, because this is such an important topic for our community, knowing that the federal standards, which are finally under discussion and expansion over the course of the last year or so, the feds are starting to think about this. But we want to have state-specific standards. So when we have some people in our community who are served by DOE or DOH or DHS or other agencies, we can make sure that program design is accounting for their needs, and equally we're able to see what their outcomes look like on a cohort basis. So really at this stage, we want to make recommendations from the 21st Century Data Task Force to this task force, the Hawaii Data Task Force, so that you can start to think about what you would put in as standards through this group and through ETS for the longer term. And so the goals of our 21st Century Data Governance Task Force, which is time limited, are to bring stakeholders together to talk about these values and the barriers, and make a report with recommendations to the legislature, and then continue between December and June, when the task force sunsets, to continue that dialogue around what those option sets or those potential values may be, and make further recommendations back to this task force. And so we would hope to give some updates in the next couple of months back to this group. Rebecca, I'll turn it back over to you if there are other things you think we should add.
Thank you, Derek. I'm not sure, can you see my slide, my screen, the slide?
Yes, we're seeing your screen.
Awesome, thank you. So this is a new federal law change where it breaks down the Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander into detailed, more disaggregated groups, and which state of Hawaii has championed over to collect such information to ensure equity. The law was, I think the federal guideline came up March of this year, right, Derek?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah,
They
and we have,
finalized it then.
yeah, and we have 5 years to be in compliance. For the state, we have a variety of systems. We have systems in the cloud, we have system on mainframe, and we have many applications. So one suggestion from the 21st Century Data Task Force is that we can inform departments the change, this new requirement now. So any existing current ongoing projects where they put in a new system or modernizing an existing system, they can make sure that they add those requirements in now instead of wait for later. So it's probably with a zero cost, they can have this in and we can start driving equity and with the information being collected. Yeah, so the ask is to have something similar to a memo that we sent before related to Senate Resolution 69 from this task force to departments to start bring the awareness to the departments and also start collecting such data. So they don't have to model the system they're being implemented now or to be implemented in future. I wonder, any comments, any suggestions? Would a memo from this data task force be a good channel to do that? And yes, I see some nodding heads. Maybe, or if any suggestions, please speak up. Any other suggestions? If not, maybe we can vote by raising hands to see if we're okay to create a memo, and I will send it to this task force members for review before we send it out. I see one hand.
Hey, Rebecca, this is fine.
Yeah.
Real quick, with the memo, are we gonna have a mechanism for which a person can, I want to say appeal, but just because I'm not sure if there might be, I haven't done extensive federal regulation review. If there might be something that might be prohibiting or whatnot, that if there's a compelling reason why they might not be able to, I won't say adhere, but align to the recommendations, we definitely want to allow them a mechanism for which they can communicate back to us too as well, right? And hopefully
yes.
the memo will offer that. Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, we can. And you have a chance to review it and update it before I send it out.
Thank you.
All right. So I think I see enough hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we're good. Okay. I will draft it and I will send it to this team for review. Yep. In the coming weeks. All right. Thank you. So the next agenda item is the update on our Senate Resolution 69. We have majority, only 3 to 4 departments haven't identified the data lead person yet. So I've met each individual one of them. And we agreed on approach because the Senate Resolution 69 is asking 3 things, right? For the data already on opendata.hawaii.gov, we need to make sure that it's up to date. For the data that only exist on departmental website, but not on opendata.hawaii.gov yet, we want to make sure that they are duplicate there. So we have this central place for citizens to access all the government open data from state of Hawaii. The third one, there could be additional data sets. There could be new departments being formed, could be new programs. And so there could be new data sets that need to be included as part of the open data. And we want to make sure that we have this ongoing review process led by departmental data leads to ensure that we always make the opendata.hawaii.gov the single stop for the citizens for our open data. So that's the plan reviewed with the departments. The question for this team, for the data task force, is there are many different kinds of data The easy one is data sets, right? A data set, it could be a PDF file, could be a CSV file, could be Excel file with all the data. That's easy. We want to make sure that the data sets that generated by the departments, if I create those data sets, I own this data set. And that should be published by that department onto the opendata.hawaii.gov if it's open data. The second question is, there are a lot of departments, they obtain the data sets. It could be census data, it could be the federal data, it could be other departments' open data. Oh, would they be responsible of putting it on the opendata.hawaii.gov? So that's a question for us. Those are the 4 scenarios of the questions I received from the departments. They're looking for guidelines. When they use for the second scenario, they use other data sets, publicly available data sets, they could be creating additional insights, or they could be just combining them. So the advice they're seeking is, are they responsible for publishing such data on the opendata.hawaii.gov website? Any thoughts, any suggestions? This is quite complicated. I know we have census data on our open data geospatial system, because that's open data. We could be using, for example, the Hawaii data book. That's coming from, data sources are coming from different departments, but DBAT create this data book where they have the insights for each chapters, each categories. So my suggestion is, if they're creating insights, they're consolidating the data, merging them together, creating insights, that should be published on the opendata.hawaii.gov, just like the DBAT's data book.
And Rebecca, how do we balance should and required to?
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
No, I know you said should, which is good. The question, how do we balance that? We're not going to require unless it's by law, right? For the open data generation, is that my understanding? Just because should, we definitely want to be sensitive to the fact that each department have varying level of resources and capacity. And so we definitely don't want to put undue burden. You know, one FTE, just to publish things. You know, if we cannot support the alignment for which, if they're publishing and it's not too much of a lift, then we want to make sure that we, yeah, I'm trying to wrestle with those ideas where we should versus, how do we help them make things more easily available for the community to consume?
Yes, thank you. That's a very good point. Maybe we should recommend them doing that instead of saying should or could.
But I also think, sorry, this is Amy. I also think that when we use stronger language or have stronger expectations, then we also create expectations for government and to fund the necessary resources. And I feel like there's strong community expectations. So, for example, if I go back to my community and I say, oh, we're doing all of this work around data and making the data more transparent, but the actual outcomes reflect no variation from what we previously did, then I'm not comfortable with just offering recommendations, because I think that if we're serving the public does want access to more data. They want more transparency. They want to, engage in these conversations around the primary information, the primary data points themselves. So, yeah, I mean, if we're just going to make recommendations, then it almost seems like an empty exercise.
Got it. Okay, yeah, thank you. This is, maybe we should leave it to the department to make such decision. If they decide to put the data on their departmental website, then they should duplicate it on the opendata.hawaii.gov.
I think in part this kind of is a question that really requires the support or maybe a deeper conversation with the executive branch and with the governor's office. Because if it is a priority for his administration to do this work around data transparency, then he will not only want to introduce legislation that makes it a requirement for his departments and agencies, but also to fund those resources. But if this is not a priority for him, then I'm not sure why we're going through this work. If we're just leaving it up to each department, I will tell you that every single department will say they're under-resourced. But if their argument around creating a more efficient government is through the increased use of data and technology, then there is going to be a cost of transition.
Okay.
And I don't know if you are having those conversations with his office, like to what extent is this something that he's willing to get behind you on? How do those conversations go?
I will seek advice on that, yeah. Yeah, we haven't had a conversation with the governor's office on this yet. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Representative Purcell. Okay. And two more categories here. One is the data visualizations, where like our one of the example is Hawaiian Green Growth. They create all the visualizations on the open data, published on the opendata.hawaii.gov. And the last one is online search. Our team did some research, basically on the federal website, data.gov, and also on the state website, opendata.hawaii.gov. We have about 7 data sets. That's not downloadable data sets, but live search. For example, you can look for a business name in Hawaii from data.gov or from opendata.hawaii.gov. That's the kind of online search. So currently we have them on the opendata.hawaii.gov. Unless, we're against it, we should probably continue to have them there. Any thoughts on this? Anyone thinking that we should remove online search from the opendata.hawaii.gov? No? Okay. We'll keep this in scope then. And all the discussions here will end up in our open data guideline document that will be presented to this group for review later on this year. Yeah. All right. So I think as we mentioned, right, different departments have different resource constraints, and different departments have the different number of data sets. That's our open data. So what we did is we expect each department data lead to create their own roadmap. For the data that's already on opendata.hawaii.gov, they can have a roadmap on when, by which quarter, they will be able to have the data being updated, keep them updated. Some data are 10-year-old that we probably can easily update it. For the data sets that's on departmental website only, but not on opendata.hawaii.gov, what's their timeline, based on the resource constraints they have and based on the number of data sets. So create a roadmap to have a plan on when they think that they can move how many data sets onto the opendata.hawaii.gov. The last one is additional data sets. It's an ongoing effort. So whenever they have a new data sets that's not open to the public, not on opendata.hawaii.gov, not on the departmental website now. However, as this new data sets come up, they will assess, making sure that if part of it or at a certain aggregation level will be defined as open data, they will make sure that it's being updated on the opendata.hawaii.gov website. So this is a template. Hopefully next meeting, we'll have some update from the departments where we can share. Yeah. This is one slide we need your advice. Would like to have some discussions on. As we have this data lead defined by each department, we can actually start a lot of data governance effort. For example, on the Open Data website, each department could be 5 departments publishing their open data aggregating up to the region level. However, those 5 departments could have different definition of region. As a citizen, if I get the data from different 5 departments, naturally, I would think if they are all rolled up to the level of region, naturally, I would believe that I can merge the data based on the region. I can look at the data across different departments by region. However, because the regions are defined differently, so the data wouldn't be accurate if I just merge them together based on the region. Department A's region is different than Department B's region. So we're hoping that forming this group, having this working group of the departmental data leads, and we can identify such data inconsistency, definitions. So we don't need to force every department to change their definition. As long as we know the difference of the definition, we can do 2 things. At the open data side, we can agree on using maybe both the departmental region definition and a common region definition. So we can have the data there and have the citizens, when they need to merge the data across different departments, they know that they have to use this file that's using the common region definition. And also for interoperability across different departments, when departments are sharing data, Department A is sharing data with Department B, and they have to roll the aggregated data up to the region level to share with Department B. So if we have a understanding of the difference of the region, and we have a mechanism, a tool, to allow Department A to aggregate it up to the Department B's region when they share with Department B, and aggregate it up to the Department C's region definition when they share with Department C. So that can improve a lot of interoperability. Currently, if they are sharing with their own region definition, the receiving department would have a hard time breaking down the data because it was aggregated, right? It doesn't have all the details to break it down and roll it back up to their own region definition. So that's one of the things we can do. And also we're hoping that we can communicate the different use cases each department is working on, so we can facilitate the collaboration and data sharing. A lot of times the use case would involve some piece of information, data from other departments. So if we all understand that, we keep in mind, we need to make sure the data is consistent. We need to make sure that the data is high quality, and we can work as a team together, facilitate that data sharing and the use case project implementation. And also different departments are ahead in certain levels. For example, DHS is really ahead in data privacy, right, Peng? And the Department of Health is really ahead on having this patient master data because they almost have every single citizen's patient master data. So hopefully we can share, have some best practices, host some brown bag launch sessions. So for department to share, like UH can share the data governance lessons learned, and department education can share the AI use cases on improving education. So we're hoping that we can facilitate this data sharing and the best practice data sharing as well. At the departmental level, it's more important just to make sure that we identify the data owner of each data set, because eventually it's the business owner of each data set can define the access control for that data set. At what level aggregate, at what level then it becomes open data, or this entire data set is open data. And if the data set is not open data, who can this be shared with? So that access control is critical to ensure the protection of the data while improve the interoperability. I wonder any suggestions on this for either at the state level or the departmental level, any additional items that we could include in scope for the working group to focus on? I have some feedback from Steve, and Steve, thank you, Steve. Is the data access and sharing, data lifecycle management, data governance roles and responsibilities, and ethics and the responsible data use. We could add in here. Oh, another thing is about data quality. After we send out the meeting materials to everyone for this data task force, that was a data quality survey conducted by NASIO, published on the 9th of September, I believe, where they interviewed state CIOs and CDOs on data quality. The result is very enlightening. 89% of the CIOs and CDOs interviewed believe that data quality is crucial, especially with the use of AI today. Garbage in, garbage out is always true, right? It's more so now with AI, with the large amount of data being processed. However, only 22% of those states have a data quality program, not to mention a team to manage the data quality. So there's definitely a big gap there of quality. With this working group, hopefully we can identify the individual use case or specific problem, data quality problem or data quality improvement areas that we could have, so we can tackle along as a team. Any suggestions here from the members, please? All good?
Rebecca, go ahead.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I might have I don't have suggestions, but I can maybe communicate some of the obvious, which is I'm hoping it's not necessarily just a mental exercise for the sake of mental exercise, but really trying to bring value to a community. And some of the pain points that we have, even within our department, is really how we go about sharing information. That's one thing. How we go about sharing information, as in, do we have the mechanism and the authority and the policies to enable us to share information? Then we run into the next part, which is how do we share information, which is then the mechanics of information sharing, and then, as you mentioned, more of the data aspects and the data cross map and how we define data between us. So those are the points of pains that we do observe, and I do want us to, as perhaps as a point of consideration, is how do we tackle those things? Although it seems easy, it's really not easy. in a sense that we, like, for instance, in our department, we may have two different agencies that might define case differently. And so how do we map that, and how do we then, line it up in a way that we can properly articulate or communicate that at the work group level that could be consumed at the community level. So those things I'm just throwing it out there because I don't have the answer. I'm hoping that we can recognize, I guess, the opportunity for which we can try to work through things and then figure out a way collectively to prioritize how we go about doing this in a way that gets us to the, one step forward. Just because it seems as though we have a lot of opportunities to move forward. It's just how do we start and where do we start?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. This is a good point. Yeah, so once we identify, we have the groups talking together, then we can identify the use cases where it would require data sharing, everything. Then we can start talking about, understanding the difference of the data, the different definition of the data elements. Then we probably would need not just a policy, and we also need tools to facilitate control the data sharing. Because sharing data, old way of sharing data is that I email you and you know me, you trust me, you send me the data. Or the current situation is I email you and let's work on an MOU, we agree on it, and we share the data. But the mechanism, like you said, Pang, how to share, that's a big part of it. Because if it requires me emailing the file to someone, I would feel less secure about sharing, less motivated about sharing, because I don't know what the receiver would be doing with the data. That person could be saving it, could be printing it out, bringing it to the Starbucks and leaving on the table there. So having a tool to be able to give the business owner of the data set the control. So I can say that who can access my data. Nobody can forward my data on. Every single one who needs access to my data would have to come to me as a business owner of that data set. And I control who has access. I control who can download the data, who can only see it online. So with a tool giving that power to the business owners of the data set, truly respect the ownership of the data. I think in that case, we can enable the controlled data sharing. Yeah, it's much more complicated. It starts with this conversation, but eventually it would have to be, like you said, upon policies and also recognizing all those different data points that we need to control and the tool to enable it. Yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey. Yeah. I heard from one of the conference that one of the federal departments spent 3 years just trying to cataloging the data, understanding the data set they have on hand, not to mention about quality control, the data sharing, all that. So it's definitely a journey. But it's necessary, especially without the proper governance, proper access control, we can promote data sharing. And without the quality management, we can't trust the data. We can't trust any insights, any recommendations coming from the data. Yeah, I will add the policy mechanism and the tool, how to share the data in here as well as the discussion points for the working group. Thank you. Any other comments on this or suggestions?
Their suggestion in that area is the value of the data sets to the organization. I think sometimes this can become a little bit of an academic exercise, or there could be concerns around the volume of information and starting to prioritize or picking a particular set of applications or areas to focus on. I know, Rebecca, we've had other conversations around starting with a particular problem to solve or a use case that
Yes.
may be illustrative to this kind of a process.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's we don't want to boil the ocean with this. we want to focus on specific use case that can add value to the citizens. And so for each use case, let's discuss about which departments are involved, what data sets are involved, any definition, different definition among those departments that's involved for this use case. And also let's talk about the access control of those data sets involved for each use case. Hopefully we have a small team but we have so many departments, and there are a lot of talents and resources within departments. And departments, they are driving the use case. So hopefully for each use case, if we work together, we can have a roadmap of the different use cases going on at each department, and different data sets involved, and different master data or the data consistency issues that exist for each use case. And that's tackled that way with this working group. So it will be an ongoing effort. Yeah, even beyond the open data.
Yeah, and I
Thank
think
you.
the benefit there is as you develop each use case, you can be iterative and identify that you've adequately covered one area and then move on to another, because this is a long journey to get to this kind of standardization.
Yes, agree.
Yeah, I just want to echo that I think being use case driven, and if possible, picking a narrower use case where all parties are very motivated to collaborate makes it easier to get to the learnings more quickly. Because I think even once you get to consistency and maybe common definitions, data is so contextually based that you can use it for one use case, but you can't necessarily use that exact same data set to apply to a similar use case, because it might be missing one piece, or there's some nuances to it. And I think it's great to get to that level, but the data might not be as extensible as you think of it or you want it to be to begin with, but you just don't uncover that until you start like running water through the pipes and actually getting to each use case at a time.
Yeah. Thank you, Tori. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So we will keep continuously reassessing ourselves on the use cases we're focusing on. And Derek and I actually are working on one use case now to hopefully, with very limited scope, to share some data. Yeah. All right. Thank you for all the feedback. I'll update this and I will send it to all the members for review afterwards. Oh, another announcement. We have the Code Challenge, Hawaiian Annual Code Challenge, coming up in November. And on October 12th, October 7th, the topics will be announced on hacc.hawaii.gov. And we data team, we participated on one topic, we submitted one topic, but we can't share detailed information now yet. So October 7th, the information will be shared. So the theme, the goal is to improve the open data website, make it more usable to our citizens. So that's the highest level we can share at this moment. Oh, so that would be it for today. For the next meeting coming up, we can share about the data quality survey from the NASIO with the team members. And if there's any other additional topics, please let me know. Hopefully the data privacy standards at that time will be updated and more amended, and we'll be ready to review that again. And we have a data cataloging standards probably would be ready. And we have 2 other documents that potentially could be ready for review during the next data task force meeting. And hopefully I'll get some feedback to see that if we can get the governance office support, like Representative Peruso mentioned, on the open data and the data initiative. Any other topic suggestions for the next meeting? You can always email me if you don't have anything now. Please. All right, so that wraps up today's meeting.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you
Thank
so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Bye.
Mahalo.
Mahalo, Rebecca.
Mahalo. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.